Couple weeks ago, I dropped a video talking about Pokemon Legends ZA. With only a few days ago, we managed to get the DLC drop. And how's that going for me? Pokemon Legends Z has been a very controversial game, and with the drop of the DLC, that's only added some fire to the discussion. And while this isn't going to be a full-on review of the DLC, I wanted to make a quick video giving my thoughts on it. Spoilers for the DLC, Pokemon Legends ZA, yada yada yada. If you want a refresher, go to my review to watch that. The basic premise of the DLC is there are these weird rifts that have been appearing all over the city of Lumiose, dragging people into them, unleashing more Pokemon into the city that aren't native to Kalos, and even a few points bringing back the dead.
And you're supposed to be dead.
I got better?
To top it off, there's this mysterious girl who has Hoopa, the Pokemon, with her. She's Ancha, the daughter of the Kalos champion Diantha, which, who's your father? Is it Sycamore? Headcanons aside, Ancha's come to Team MZ to help explore these rifts that lead to the Mega Dimension. Well, that's a lie. She actually came to make donuts. But most of the time, these rifts lead you into a hyperspace that effectively takes the streets of Lumiose, removes the color, puts a lot more debris in the way, and this little lady wants to catch... Is that a frickin' Rayquaza? I joke, but the setup is solid. Gives a bit of a mystery as to why this is happening, and with the threat of the whole city being swallowed up by these rifts, it makes things a little harsh. I say that because we're told by Corbo, who basically becomes the mission driver for the DLC, that there are plenty of Pokemon from the rifts coming out into the city. Yes and no, mainly because the only Pokemon I've seen from the rifts that are already caught by trainers or basically used for side missions. I haven't seen any wild Pokemon from the rifts come out into the city walking around, which I think would have been a good idea to have expressed this was happening by adding more wild Pokemon into the wild areas. At best, we get new side missions that include the new Pokemon. Anyway, with Ancha and Hoopa, we can enter the hyperspace dimension with the power of donuts? Considering that we've managed to get powers to make shinies appear in the Paldea region with sandwiches, I'm at the point where this doesn't really surprise me. Therefore, the Lone Shark Corbo drags us into investigating these rifts, and we basically have our plot for the device and how we get to the main gameplay loop. It's not bad, not great. There are a lot of characters in the main game getting some expanding stories and characterization, and we actually get another character returning from the XY games, Korrina.
There. Sure glad I don't look stupid in this.
You know, there's always something I can give credit to Pokemon, and set their character designs are usually top tier, but what the hell are they smoking with this one? Basically, what we gotta do is go into rifts, gather data by doing small missions in the Mega Dimension, and then fight against some new rogue Mega Evolutions as bosses. Oh, and then the story isn't offensive, but you're not going to get anything too great here. We have all this with Ancha wanting to find Rayquaza to give to her mother, but there really isn't anything deeply profound here. I did find some parts of it to be entertaining, though. What the hell is in this thing? Which, in all honesty, the gameplay loop is something Pokemon hasn't done before. When you look at the levels that reach well over 100 up to 200, along with there being a lot new Pokemon invading into the game, there is a lot of stuff to do. There are rifts that are ranked by stars and are given elements so you can plan accordingly. Most of the time. There are about 5 different rifts you can enter. Hyperspace Wild Zone rifts, where you can catch wild Pokemon, Battle Zones, where you can fight against trainers who have boosted levels, Side Quest rifts, and finally you have Rogue Mega Evolutions of 2 varieties. The first is a more random Mega Evolutions you can get Mega Stones from, and the second is a rematch against Rogue Megas you've already fought with only a boost on levels. And if you played the main game, well, you pretty much get the idea here. The only difference is that the Pokemon here have a lot more levels. Sometimes there's cargo bins, trucks, cars, and other garbage that's blocking your path, and there are floating Pokeballs that you can attack and get items from. The battle zones are essentially the same as the battle zones you fight in the base game. The only difference is the zones alert you to what kind of Pokemon types the trainers are using for the rift, but you have to continue what you were doing before, trying to make sure that you don't get spotted by the trainers before you can make a sneak attack and try to fulfill the missions in the top right corner. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up this weird oddity that happened to me at one point. Thanks for joining the party, I was about to leave. And the Rogue Megas, well, that just writes itself. I'm not going to go through the different Mega Evolutions, say for once. Screw the Mega Crabominal Mega Battle, holy crap, man! I enjoy the fact we're on a frozen river and we can actually have a proper 2-on-1 fight with some challenging monsters, but Jesus, that fight kicked my teeth in a couple times. Probably one of the better rifts are the side quests. This is where you get some fun setups for some fights, and the rewards are pretty good. I finally got muscle definition in a Pokemon game! Damn, we looking good! Yeah, you can actually unlock the outfits worn by the sidecast. Well, the ones you fight against in the ZA Royale battle. I chose Eeyore's outfit because finally I can have some biceps in my Pokemon character design. Never gonna get that hair though. But we can also dress up like Corbo, Canary, and the Stalker. I don't know why I'd wear that pink monstrosity. I'm far past my crossplay days. Point is, I appreciate this. Now we gotta talk about the other half of this gameplay loop. Making donuts. You know, those missions and floating Pokeballs I talked about? Yeah, by breaking them you get items, and sometimes you get berries. And some of them being hyperspace berries, you need these berries to make donuts. There are 5 flavors of donuts you can make: sweet, spicy, sour, bitter, and fresh, along with a mixed flavoring. Each of these flavors will have different powers you can roll on them. For example, with sweet power you can get abilities that allow you to find alpha Pokemon or shinies. You wanna know how effective these donuts are? Watch this. I did not edit that, holy crap! Spicy donuts boost the power of your Pokemon, like improving its attacking or boosting a certain move type. Sour gives you item powers, like finding different specialized items and getting big hauls of them. And for some reason also gives you Mega Evolution to charge faster and conserve it better, I don't know why. Bitter is more defensive, it's kinda like the opposite of the spicy donuts. And Fresh increases the catching power in encounters. Each of these have levels on them, and the more you put into a certain flavor, which are shown on the berries, the more the donut will have a better chance for you to have the higher abilities. Kinda, because there's a randomizer to this. Now, I'm not the huge fan of randomizing these sorts of things in games, because you can have a really good sour donut and get stuck with a string of bad luck that gives you terrible pull power. The same thing goes with the drops, because while you can get a general item classification down, you can't really guarantee anything specific. Unless there's some big brain on the social media apps who came with the best combinations that somehow get you the exact powers, and I'm too lazy to look that up. There's also the fact you can use regular berries, but I've never seen a lot of use of them when you get the hyperspace ones, since the hyperspace berries give you a lot more of the levels of the taste that you want. I wish there was something that allowed you to recycle your regular berries and transform them into hyperspace ones. Hell, use multiple regular berries to do that so you don't break down the whole thing. We do have a small recycling mechanic where you give donuts to a Gulpin and it'll give you a handful of berries, but I never got anything good from this and just let the little guy starve most of the time. This isn't a terrible system, as it has potential, and I'd be lying if I didn't get some enjoyment with the gameplay, because when you're actually playing it and not having some joker yelling in your ear about how you're a shill, the game actually has a good reward system, kinda. You're pushed to experiment with the donuts and try to get a good hit with your tastes. I'd also like to point out that each berry has a level and a caloric intake with it. They're necessary since the donuts also pump up your own Pokemon's levels and give you time in the rifts. There is potential, but before I get into my critiques, there's something we need to discuss that's important. One more spoiler warning for the bosses. Pokemon Legends ZA, while I didn't have the most intricate boss fights in all gaming, the DLC did at least attempt to make them a bit more difficult. A lot of the later stage bosses have 2 stages to them, and they include Pokemon such as Darkrai, Groudon, Kyogre, and of course... Not to give too much about them, but these bosses had some more thought put into them, as their attacks do a lot of AoE damage, and they have some interesting quirks with them. Plus, I do love their designs, like Darkrai actually got a really good Mega Evolution. It has this whole Eldritch Abomination going on. And then when we get to the actual tactics, let's take a look at Groudon. It's a ground type, and considering its primal form is that of a ground fire type, it's a no-brainer to load up on water type Pokemon. Well, here's the thing. In the base game, abilities are no longer a thing. Primal Groudon still gains immunity to water moves due to the strong sunlight, which is akin to its ability Desolate Land, negating water-type moves. So it brings a small unique challenge to it. It's not the greatest, but it does make you think about having a good specific team composition, and even then, there are things about these fights that actually had some thought put into them. And, Mega Rayquaza? Look, I actually enjoy the fights, and I will say that the arenas for Pokemon that took place in were such a great breath of fresh air for this game. Makes me wish that they had other locations to explore in hyperspace, or even the original base game that took us to different environments. Hell, when we get to Mega Darkrai, we actually get to be in a dark, creepy forest. Kinda wish something like that was in the base game that we could explore. And that's a good way to segue into this. This DLC is not worth the price of admission. I appreciate that we're getting different flavors to the game mode, but I feel like there should have been a lot more changes to the Mega Dimension other than a color palette swap, placing some obstacles from reused assets, or going into the sewers multiple times. There should have been a lot more environments for us to explore in the dimension, and while I appreciate the forest where you fight Darkrai, the water and magma caves for Kyogre and Groudon respectively, and the Sky Pillar for Rayquaza, you don't get to explore them. They're just glorified arenas that you jump down or go on a single path and just reach the boss battle. And once you catch these Pokemon, you can never go back to them. I have never been a fan of the prices for the Pokemon's DLC, but if we look towards the other Switch titles, this is a severe downgrade from what we had before. For Scarlet and Violet, games that have a lot of issues with, at least allowed you a large amount of content and some actually good story bits for its characters. You were given 2 additional maps filled with different biomes and locations. You had brand new Pokemon that were made specifically for these, such as Ogerpon and Terapagos. Hell, you could even control your Pokemon as a Pokemon and roam around the map. Sword and Shield gave you additional maps to explore as well that allow unique locations for the Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra. I don't agree with the price tag that they had for all of these though, as well as the bullshit of having to buy DLC for each copy of the game, but there was stuff that at least gave the DLC its own identity. There could have been a lot more done with the Mega Dimensions, and it's honestly not worth the price of admission, especially when you consider that Arceus, it had an upgrade that was actually free. Maybe if this was like $15, then I say maybe you could buy it, but that's still pushing it. I think there should have been added to the system that allow you to convert your regular berries into hyperspace berries. Throughout the main game, I have managed to collect my hands on a ton of the regular berries, and now they're just sitting in my inventory collecting dust because I never found a use for them. I'm someone who believes that you need to have items in games, you have to have some sort of use, and not have them be rendered useless by other redundant items. Or if you do, you need to have something to do with them. While I don't have an issue with Korrina or Ancha as characters, I think this was a missed opportunity to reintroduce some of the older cast of X and Y. We have hyperspace battle zones that have specific types listed to them. Why not have a boss character who is one of the former gym leaders or even the Elite Four add in there? Adds a little extra challenge, brings back some familiar faces, and gives an additional twist to the gameplay to have optional bosses. We're introduced rather early to Z Mega Pokemon with Mega Absol Z and Mega Lucario Z, and we're told that Z Pokemon tend to have a lot more power to them, but they burn through the Mega Energy quicker than normal. That's all well and good, nothing wrong with that, but here's a question. How many Z Mega Pokemon are there? 3. Just 3. Absol, Lucario, and Garchomp. And that last one you can't even access yet because its Mega Stone isn't available. And I have to ask, why? Why introduce the concept of Z Mega Evolutions and only have 3 of them? In fact, there have only been 18 more Mega Evolutions introduced in the DLC. Not counting Pokemon that have pre-established Mega Evolutions, I would have expected more original ones. You have a huge roster of Pokemon here in the base game, and a lot of them without Mega Evolutions just become randomized fodder. I'm not saying every Pokemon in this should get a Mega, but you have some Pokemon like Arbok, Ariados, the Elemental Monkeys, Machamp, Gudra, and so many others that will be left to the side and not be used because they lack a Mega Evolution. This would have been a good time to include more ways for these Pokemon to have a chance against the Megas, or include Z Megas for other Pokemon. Not that I think they need it, because frankly they already get enough glory already, but I'm honestly shocked that Charizard and Mewtwo didn't get Z Evolutions. Also, still no Mega Evolution for Flygon. At this point, it's just salt in the wound. Now, with all this said, I could go into what I would have wanted for the DLC, like maybe have an actual antagonist outside of Darkrai who caused these rifts, just to change things up from the base game. Hell, you had a good setup with Volo. Apparently he's still walking around. Could have brought him back for this. But I'm rambling at this point, so I'll leave this section with this. There was a lot of talk about how this entire thing was cut content from the base game, and I'm thinking, I don't agree with that. In all honesty, this DLC doesn't really add anything to the base game's narrative or gameplay other than getting some new Pokemon available, so anyone who's telling you that it was cut content is talking out of their ass. That said, I wouldn't recommend this DLC even if you're a Pokemon fan. Sure, I have my shiny Blaziken in a love ball Don't ask me why, but it's not worth that. If anything, I prefer we get Pokemon Home connectivity because I don't want to leave behind the Pokemon I've caught in this game. Plus, with the fact that it's the 30th anniversary for the Pokemon franchise next year with talks of Generation 10 around the corner, I highly doubt we'll get anything else with this DLC because, well, it's going to be left behind. I'm not here to tell you that you should go out and buy the DLC. I'm also not here to tell you how to spend your money. I assume most of you are adults and can make that on your own call. There are positives with this DLC, but even with them combined, that's enough for me to really recommend the DLC to other people. Sure, it's cool to fight against such iconic Pokemon like Kyogre, Groudon, and Rayquaza in this battle style, but it's not enough to really make it worth it. Did I have fun? Yes. Does it mean it's worth $30? No, there was a lot of potential that should have been used to help with the base game, but I still want to recommend either the base game or the DLC at their current prices. In any case, if you enjoyed the video, have a happy holiday everyone. I'm MangaKamen, later.